Good morning, everyone. This is Still Rose's podcast. This podcast was created for women by women to elevate women's voices. Very happy to be here with all of you today, and a little bit of a celebratory episode. So I actually want to take a minute in this episode to say welcome to three of the newest family members to my family, my extended family. We had some really, really great stork deliveries this year. Three cousins, all in a row, back to back. We had some new arrivals, and I can't say enough about how thrilled I am about this. Now, as a mom and as a grandma, I get very excited seeing families expand, and seeing the expansion of a lineage is to me such a beautiful thing. And quite often when my husband and I have our whole family here, and it would be our five kids. So combined five children, two grandchildren, and then our son-in-law. And whenever we're all here, there's always a moment when I look at everybody and then I'll turn to my husband and I'll say to him, everyone here, minus myself and my son-in-law, would not be here today without you. And it's such a huge, huge blessing to be able to pull a united family together. It is very hard to do that. It is incredibly hard to have your family come together and be supportive of each other and remain united. And it takes work. Like a lot of work, and it takes a lot of, not sacrifice, but in some instances sacrifice. My husband sacrificed a great deal for his older children to make sure that they stayed united as a family unit. And then now we have our three kids, and watching everyone grow together is the most beautiful thing. It's the most beautiful feeling. So I do want to say a big shout out to my cousins and their wives, and my cousin and her husband, and to my aunt and uncle, who went from one grandchild to four. Two, three, four. Yes, within a couple of months. A big congratulations to everybody there. I'm thrilled to come and visit. I have a visit planned already. Really, really welcome and very excited for all of you. Now, in honor of all of the new arrivals in the family, my other cousin, Melissa, and I, who are not part of this new arrival crew, we started kind of reminiscing about things, what do we wish we had done differently when we had babies, or what was shocking for us when we first had our kids. And this is going to sound kind of dumb, but one of the biggest shocks that I got, and again, it's going to sound stupid, but please just bear with me. One of the larger shocks that I got when I was expecting my son, my husband said something to the effect of, well, Jenny, you're never going to be alone ever again. And the way that he said it was more of like you'll always have him. He's always going to be there. It's your son is growing in your stomach. But for someone like me, when he said it, in my head, it was like, dun, dun, dun. And I was like, I'll never be alone again. And, because I'm very much a person who enjoys solitude. I like quiet and I like my alone time, and which sounds insane because I've always wanted like 5 or 6 kids. And so to say that sounds nuts, but I do. I like to have some alone time. I like to have some quiet. Like I like to do my thing. I like to read, for Pete's sake. Like can't really do that with an infant when you're like chasing after a bunch of kids. So, that was like a big one for me. And it's funny because this is something that my cousin and I were talking about today. And as our kids have grown, we've come to the realization that there's almost never a moment where we're by ourselves. Now, me, yes, because I work during the day now, or I work from home, and my kids are in camp, which you all know at this point. So I get to have that freedom. But now that's only 8 or 9 years later. Before, yes, there was alone time while you're working, but there was no true just you're alone and you're doing something for yourself. Like this podcast could not have existed when my kids were infants, because they would have all been crying on this podcast with me. Like I would have had 2 on my chest, 1 in my lap, and I would have been recording like that. Like that's to the extent of, me always being with them. My husband has a picture of me when I was working. Oh boy, going back to these memories, but me when I was working, I had my laptop, propped up on the side on a pillow. I had a child under each arm. I had my headphones on, and I had a child sitting in my lap in between my legs. And in the picture, you can see from the angle that I am running a webcast and on a conference call, but I have all my babies with me, and that's how they grew up. They actually, I again had the great fortune of being able to work from home, and because of that, I was able to still accelerate my career while taking care of my kids. Nevertheless, not having alone time is always a shock, and it continues to be a shock when you don't get that really much needed solitude moment. Outside of that shock, one of the other things that nobody talks about, and so I'm going to talk about it, is how difficult it is after you have a baby. Now, people will say that, oh yeah, it's hard. You'll get through it. You'll be fine. The amount of rage that I used to feel when I had my babies and they were infants and people would come to the house and they would come in and they would be freshly showered and look rested, and they looked like they had eaten like healthy food and their skin was glowing. And they would kind of just come in and say, oh, you'll be fine. You'll get through it. You're tough. You can do it. And in my head, I was always like, F you. And I feel a little bit bad because, I mean, I know everyone was really well-intentioned, but at the same time, I'm like, I was exhausted. I was overwhelmed. I had postpartum depression, which nobody really knew about at the time. It, it, it would always be like this, like, you're basically spitting in my face. It was hard for me. It was very hard for me to go from, from having the kids and that joy, but then to also be like, oh my God, the overwhelming amount of work. It was one of the most difficult moments of my life because your brain goes through changes, your body physically went through a change, your hormones are a disaster, now you're sleep deprived. In these moments is the first times that you will likely feel like you hate your husband. And I say that with the nicest way possible. Because you don't hate your husband. Clearly, you procreated with him. Like, you don't hate him. You chose to marry this. I chose you. Like, I chose you as my person. But kids throw something else into the mix, whatever it is. And I have an idea, which I'll talk about in a minute, but like something happens there and it makes you and your husband sometimes at odds. And it doesn't have, maybe it doesn't happen to everybody, but I would bet money that it does. But people just don't talk about it. Nobody wants to talk about that. They don't want people to be like, oh, what's wrong with you? You have marriage problems? Nobody wants to have marriage problems. The secret is we all have marriage problems, and it's okay because everyone has marriage problems. Do you think anyone's 100% happy? I said to my cousin recently that my husband and I have found a way where we like argue, but we know each other so well that the arguments last about 3.5 minutes. They're not really heated. And it kind of just like fizzles, it's stupidity because it's like, what are we going to fight about? What is there to fight about at this point? But when you have a baby, the fights are intense and it gets real because you now have two people that have very strong opinions about what is supposed to be happening with this child. And not only do you have two people with strong opinions, you have to deal with in-laws as well because now all of a sudden everybody has opinions. And then you get the joy of having pressure from other people who think like, this is my moment, this is my time to shine to tell you what you need to do as a parent. My favorite, and I'm going to say this because this was me, and I just want to slap myself in the face for this one. My favorite are the people that don't have kids that come around and say, well, you know what? I read in this book, and the reason why it's my favorite is because that's exactly how I used to talk before I had kids. My husband and I, were dating. He already had kids. And I used to say to him, I have kids. I'm not going to let them do this, or I'm only going to read books to them all the time. That's all I'm going to do. And I'm only going to let them do this. And I'm never going to do this. And article says, and there's research that has said, blah, 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 blah. And now I just want to punch myself in the face because I'm like, oh my God, I must have sounded so dumb. And I say it to him now and he laughs at me because he's like, yeah, you used to really just try to tell me, everything about what it is to be a parent when you yourself had never had any kids and had no idea what you were talking about. And it's comical, if you really think about it, the amount of people that feel prepared because they've done loads of research. And I'm going to call out my cousin here because this is something we were joking about. So my cousin, who was original co-host for the podcast, when I had my son, she flew in for it. She stayed with me at the hospital. She was there when he was born. Beautiful moment. And then she flew in for my brother's kids. She's down in Florida. So she flew in for everybody's kids to be born. She helped out the first week. Great. Amazing. And so much so that we were like, oh, when you have a child, this is going to be and I actually even said it to her. So this shows you how much I just kind of assumed. I was like, oh, it'll be easy. Once you have a kid, it's going to be a no-brainer. You're not even going to be blinking. She had a really awful struggle after she had her daughter because she had postpartum anxiety really badly. And she struggled really hard. And it was crazy because she even said it today. She's like, I thought that I was going to have the easiest time because I had witnessed all of you and I just assumed I know what I'm doing here. And then when it push came to shove, it's like, oh wait, I don't know what I'm doing here. It's totally different when it's your child and you're responsible for this tiny thing's life. Completely different scenario. So yes, that's another point to be made. for all the new moms out there, you are going to get so much advice. The reality is, you're the parent and you have to do what you think is best. No matter what anyone else says, you have to do what's best for your child. So if you want your kid on a certain specific schedule, that's it. That's law. That's it. Do what you feel like is best that you need to do. Now, yes, be open to people. Listen to, if you want to listen to reputable opinions, somebody that you trust, by all means. But at the end of the day, that child is your child. You have to do what's right for them by your book and your book alone. That's how I live my life. And it's something my husband and I feel very strongly about. And I really don't care what anyone else's opinions are about how I'm raising my kids. I like how I'm raising them. I love the people they're turning out to be. So you got to just do that. Stick with that. Do not feel pressure to mold to anything specific. It is up to you and your husband what is best for that child. And you two need to work on that together. That is not meant to be for everyone to have an opinion and you're taking a stock. Now, this third thing here, it's not going to feel good to hear it, but when I was in the thick of things really being complicated with my kids and just really my health and everything not doing well and whatnot, when I was in the thick of it, somebody said to me, and I almost cried when they said it, but a woman, an extended family member, approached me and just said, I know you're really struggling. Now, at that time, I didn't talk about my struggle and I didn't complain. You were not going to hear me complain. And so she just kind of pulled me aside and she's like, this is literally the hardest part you're going through right now this is it. Once you get through this, like everything else is going to be like a breeze, but this is where you have to get through. And everyone, including this woman, said to me, when you hit 5 years old and you start going after 5, things are different. It will start to loosen up. And I cannot tell you how right on that was. And I was, and in the moment, I remember being like, oh my God, that's 4 years away. What am I going to do? Like, obviously you're going to survive it. Like, it is what it is. You have a child. You're going to make it work. I was like kind of out of my head. Now my kids, twins are 8, my son is 9, and I've got my evenings back. It took about 8 years, but I got my evenings back. Now you're wondering, like, what are you talking about? Because bedtime used to take me about an hour and a half to 2 hours because I know I'm a problem. My husband would put them to bed, say goodnight, and he would just vacate. Like he would just, it was like the dust in the wind. Like he would just run from the room. And then for mommy, it was like, oh, I need another hug. Well, let's do this. And I like to do prayers at night with all my kids. Some of them are traditional prayers, but then I also do a set of affirmations for my kids too. So whenever I would pick up on something new that I wanted them to just say out loud, I would add it into the affirmation. So that's what we do at night. But what was happening is they're, oh, can you sit with me a little bit? Can you hold my hand? And I'm their mother. And, I always said to my husband, I was like, there's going to come a time where they're not going to want me to hold their hand. So I got to do it now. He was like, all right, just do what you need to do. But then after a while, it becomes like very cumbersome. I'm like, I'm tired too. Like, I just want to go to bed. Please stop calling me back in here. We rectified that situation this year, finally. And by finally, I mean me, really, letting go a little bit. But I did. And now I'm as quick as my husband, in and out. And everyone, for the most part, stays in their rooms. That's it. No more, up and down and back and forth, which I'm grateful for. Like, there's no other way to put that. I am grateful for it. I get to go and hang out with my husband for an hour or two before we both go to bed. Like, this is awesome. It's awesome. I can't even tell you. But it took 8 years to get here. It's a long road. And there's going to be much more to go because my kids are still little. So it's a lifetime of figuring it out with your partner. And I keep saying, I apologize, I keep saying husband, but your partner, like the person that you've chosen to be with through all this, it's a lifetime together, and kids need both their parents. They do. I'm speaking from the heart here on this. Like, you need both your parents. And I see it on my kids. So another big round of congratulations all around to my family, my extended family, and all of the new additions. And I do want to take another moment to just say congratulations to my cousin. This week marks a milestone for her family with a birthday, and that marks you another year as a mom. So you are one of the greatest moms that I know. Advocating for your daughter has never been a problem for you, and commend you all the way on everything that you're doing. So congrats all around. And I hope you all enjoyed this little trip down memory lane. I tried to remember as much as I could. And I will catch you on the next one. Take care.